A devastating chain of events begins during the week of January 26th through January 30th as Abby and Devin Winters face every parent's worst nightmare. Dominic, recently recast with Ethan Ray Clarke, suddenly vanishes from the Chancellor grounds, leaving the family in immediate panic and disbelief. The disappearance is the result of a stealth abduction. Mariah Copeland manages to quietly whisk the boy away without alerting any staff. At first, she is not even considered a suspect because she was believed to be receiving treatment at a facility in Boston. By Friday, January 30th, spoilers confirm that Mariah officially hits the road with Dominic, taking him out of Genoa City and deepening the urgency of the search. Mariah's actions are being driven by a severe psychological breakdown. She has been experiencing hallucinations and hearing the voice of Ian Ward, a manipulative figure from her past who continues influencing her through disturbing visions. These episodes have fueled an obsessive fixation on Dominic, the child she carried as a surrogate and once nicknamed Bowie. Her recent treatment in Boston is revealed to have failed, leaving her vulnerable to these dark impulses. The emotional fallout hits Abby especially hard. Once close friends with Mariah, Abby now views her as a criminal and is prepared to unleash her full anger. She wants Mariah held fully accountable under the law. While Devin may argue that Mariah is mentally ill and needs treatment, Abby is expected to insist that prison, not a hospital, is the proper consequence for stealing their son. This fundamental disagreement is set to create serious strain in their marriage throughout the February sweeps. The investigation intensifies as Detective Burrows takes charge of the case. He begins assembling the critical puzzle pieces that could connect Mariah directly to the disappearance. Tessa, Mariah's wife, and Daniel Romalotti are drawn into the search as they struggle to understand how Mariah's mental state deteriorated so rapidly without their awareness. The storyline continues building toward a high-stakes standoff as the search for Mariah and Dominic expands beyond Genoa City with emotions escalating and consequences mounting on all sides. The Young and the Restless spoilers, Mariah's dark descent, and Dominic's abduction. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. What I'm about to tell you is absolutely heartbreaking. We're going to talk about Mariah Copeland's complete psychological breakdown and how it leads to one of the most devastating storylines The Young and the Restless has done in years. We're talking about a kidnapping, a friendship destroyed, and a woman so lost in her mental illness that she can't see the terrible things she's doing. So, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because the week of January 26th through 30th is going to be absolutely gut-wrenching, and you need to be here for every update. Alright, let's dive in. Now, you might remember that Mariah was Dominic's surrogate. She carried him, gave birth to him, and then handed him over to Devin and Abby to raise. And at the time, it seemed like Mariah handled that transition well. She seemed to understand that Dominic wasn't her child to keep, that her role was to bring him into the world and then let his parents raise him. But something's been happening to Mariah. Something dark and terrifying that nobody fully understood until it was too late. During the week of January 26th through 30th, Abby and Devin are going to face every parent's worst nightmare. They're going to realize that Dominic has vanished from the Chancellor grounds. Think about that moment. 1 second your child is there, safe, where he's supposed to be. And the next second he's gone, just gone. And you have no idea where he is, who took him, or if he's safe. That's the terror that Abby and Devin are about to experience. And it's going to destroy them. But here's what makes this even more chilling. Mariah managed to whisk Dominic away without alerting the staff. This wasn't a violent abduction where alarms went off and people saw what was happening. This was stealth. This was calculated. This was Mariah using her familiarity with the location and the people to take Dominic without anyone noticing until it was too late. And initially, Mariah's not even going to be a suspect because she was supposed to be in a treatment facility in Boston. Nobody in Genoa City should have been thinking about Mariah at all because she wasn't supposed to be there. So, when Dominic goes missing, when the search begins, everyone's going to be looking for a stranger, a kidnapper, someone with malicious intent. They're not going to immediately think, could it be Mariah? And that gives Mariah a head start. That gives her time to get away, to put distance between herself and the people who are looking for Dominic. And by Friday, January 30th, the spoilers say Mariah will officially hit the road with Dominic. She's taking him away from Genoa City entirely. She's not just hiding somewhere local. She's fleeing, running, trying to get as far away as possible before anyone can stop her. And that escalation from taking Dominic to actually fleeing with him tells us something crucial about Mariah's mental state. She's not having second thoughts. She's not questioning what she's doing. She's committed to this path, convinced that what she's doing is right.
But why?
Why would Mariah do this? Why would someone who seemed rational, who seemed to understand the situation, suddenly kidnap the child she gave birth to? The answer is absolutely devastating. Mariah is spiraling into a deep psychological crisis, and she's being influenced by something or someone from her traumatic past. Mariah has been hearing the voice of Ian Ward. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. Ian Ward, one of the most villainous, manipulative characters in Young and the Restless history, is somehow in Mariah's head. She's hearing his voice. She's experiencing visions of him, and he's manipulating her, twisting her thoughts, convincing her to do things she would never normally do. Now, Ian Ward might actually be dead, or in prison, or somewhere far away from Genoa City. These might be hallucinations, manifestations of Mariah's deteriorating mental health. Or Ian might somehow be reaching out to her using some method we don't understand yet. But either way, the result is the same. Mariah's being influenced by one of the darkest figures from her past, and it's driving her to do something unforgivable. And here's what makes this even more tragic. Mariah has become obsessively fixated on Dominic, the child she carried as a surrogate and whom she originally nicknamed Bowie. That nickname tells us everything. Bowie was Mariah's name for him when he was still inside her when she was pregnant. It was personal. It was intimate. It was the name she used before he became Dominic, before he became Devin and Abby's son. So, in Mariah's fractured mind, he's still Bowie. He's still hers. The fact that she gave birth to him means he belongs to her in a way that Devin and Abby can never understand. And Ian Ward's voice in her head is probably reinforcing that belief. He's probably telling her that Dominic was taken from her, that she has rights to him, that she needs to reclaim what's rightfully hers. It's a delusion. It's a complete distortion of reality. But to Mariah in her current mental state, it feels absolutely true. Now, here's the part that's going to make you heartbroken for everyone involved. It's revealed that Mariah's recent stint at a psychiatric clinic in Boston was unsuccessful. Think about what that means. Mariah was getting help. She was in treatment. People recognized that she was struggling, and they tried to intervene, but the treatment failed. It didn't work. And now Mariah's vulnerable to these dark side impulses that are driving her to kidnap Dominic. So, this isn't a case of Mariah being ignored or people not caring about her mental health. This is a case of the system failing her. This is a case of psychiatric treatment not being enough to save her from her own mind. And that's a really important distinction. Because when this all comes out, when everyone finds out that Mariah took Dominic, there are going to be people who say, "How could nobody see this coming? How could nobody stop her?" But the truth is, people tried. Mariah was in treatment, and it still wasn't enough. That's the terrifying reality of severe mental illness. Sometimes even professional help isn't sufficient to prevent someone from acting on their delusions or compulsions. Now, let's talk about Abby's reaction. Because when Abby finds out that Mariah is responsible for Dominic's disappearance, she's going to lose it. Abby and Mariah were once close friends. They had a relationship built on trust, on the shared experience of bringing Dominic into the world. Mariah was the person Abby chose to carry her child. That's an incredibly intimate bond. But that bond is now effectively destroyed because you don't come back from this. You don't rebuild a friendship after one person kidnaps the other person's child. Abby is reportedly unleashing her wrath. She wants Mariah to face the full force of the law. And unlike Devin, who might argue that Mariah is mentally ill and needs help, Abby's going to argue that Mariah should be sent to prison, not a hospital. Think about the position Abby's in. Her child was taken. Her friend betrayed her in the most devastating way possible. And now people are going to tell her, but Mariah's sick. She needs treatment, not punishment. And Abby's response is going to be, I don't care if she's sick. She stole my son. She put him in danger. She traumatized our entire family. She deserves to go to prison. And you know what? From Abby's perspective, that's completely understandable because at the end of the day, Dominic is her child. Her responsibility is to protect him and make sure that whoever hurt him faces consequences. The fact that Mariah is mentally ill doesn't change the fact that she committed a serious crime. It doesn't undo the trauma she's caused, and it doesn't guarantee that Dominic will be safe from her in the future. So, Abby's going to be adamant that Mariah needs to go to prison, and she's going to be furious at anyone who suggests otherwise. But Devon's probably going to have a different perspective. Devon's more likely to focus on the fact that Mariah's not in her right mind, that she's being influenced by hallucinations and delusions, that punishment won't fix what's broken in her, and that disagreement, mental health treatment versus prison, is going to cause significant tension in Abby and Devon's marriage throughout February. Think about how heartbreaking that is. Their child was kidnapped. They should be united in dealing with this crisis, but instead they're going to be fighting about what should happen to Mariah once she's caught. Abby's going to feel betrayed if Devon shows sympathy for Mariah. She's going to feel like he's prioritizing Mariah's well-being over their family's need for justice. And Devon's going to feel frustrated that Abby can't see beyond her anger to recognize that Mariah's a victim, too. A victim of her own mental illness. A victim of whatever Ian Ward did to her in the past that's now manifesting in these hallucinations. So, this crisis isn't just going to traumatize Abby and Devon individually. It's going to damage their relationship with each other. And even after Dominic is safely home, even after the immediate danger's past, the rift between them over how to handle Mariah is going to linger. Now, let's talk about the investigation. Because while Mariah's fleeing with Dominic, the police are going to be working frantically to find them. Detective Burrows is going to be leading the search, and he's going to be the one to find the puzzle pieces that link Mariah to the disappearance. Think about what those puzzle pieces might be. Maybe it's surveillance footage showing Mariah at the Chancellor grounds when she shouldn't have been there. Maybe it's witnesses who saw her, but didn't realize the significance at the time. Maybe it's evidence that Mariah left Boston and traveled back to Genoa City without telling anyone. Whatever the clues are, Detective Burrows is going to put them together and realize that Mariah's not in Boston like everyone thought. She's here, and she's the one who took Dominic. And once that connection is made, the entire investigation shifts. Now, they're not looking for a random kidnapper. They're looking for someone specific, someone they can track, someone whose patterns they know, someone whose connections they can exploit. But that also makes it more painful because Mariah's not a stranger. She's someone they all know and care about. And realizing that she's the one who took Dominic is going to devastate everyone who loves her. Which brings us to Tessa and Daniel. Mariah's wife and brother are going to get pulled into the search as they try to understand how Mariah's mental state deteriorated so quickly without them knowing. And that's going to be a source of enormous guilt for both of them because they're the people closest to Mariah. They're supposed to notice when something's wrong. They're supposed to intervene before things get this bad. But Mariah managed to hide the extent of her crisis from them. Or maybe they saw signs but didn't realize how serious it was. Either way, they're going to blame themselves for not preventing this. Tessa especially is going to be devastated. She's Mariah's wife. She's supposed to be Mariah's partner, her support system, the person who knows her better than anyone. And now she's finding out that Mariah was hearing voices, having hallucinations, planning to kidnap a child. And Tessa had no idea. How do you process that? How do you cope with the realization that your spouse was suffering so deeply and you completely missed it? And Daniel, as Mariah's brother, is going to feel like he failed to protect her. He's going to wonder if there was something he could have said or done that would have made a difference. So, even beyond the trauma to Abby and Devon, even beyond the danger to Dominic, this situation is going to hurt Mariah's own family deeply. Now, let's think about what's going to happen when Mariah is eventually found, because she will be found. This storyline can't go on indefinitely. At some point, Dominic has to be returned to his parents safely. But what state is Mariah going to be in when they find her? Is she going to still be delusional, still hearing Ian Ward's voice, still convinced that Dominic belongs to her? Or is there going to be a moment of clarity where she realizes what she's done and is horrified by it? And what about Dominic? He's been aged up and recast, so he's old enough now to understand what's happening. He's going to remember being taken. He's going to remember Mariah, this woman he might have known as a family friend, suddenly becoming the person who kidnapped him. The psychological impact on Dominic is going to be enormous. Even if Mariah never physically harms him, even if she treats him well during the time she has him, the trauma of being taken from his parents is going to affect him for years. And when he's eventually reunited with Abby and Devin, he's going to need so much help processing what happened to him. Therapy, support, time to feel safe again. So, the ripple effects of Mariah's actions are going to extend far beyond just the immediate crisis. This is going to change multiple lives permanently. The spoilers say the storyline is heading toward a high-stakes standoff as the search for Mariah and Dominic expands beyond Genoa City. So, we're building toward a climactic confrontation where Mariah's finally tracked down. And that standoff is going to be intense because Mariah's not going to want to give Dominic back. She's convinced he's hers. She's convinced she's protecting him, saving him, doing what's right. So, when the police show up, when Abby and Devin arrive, Mariah's going to resist. She's going to argue, plead, maybe even threaten because in her fractured mind, these people are the ones trying to take her child away from her. And that's going to be heartbreaking to watch because we know Mariah's not a bad person. We know she's suffering from severe mental illness. We know Ian Ward's voice in her head has twisted her perception of reality. But we also know she's committed a terrible crime, and regardless of her mental state, she has to face consequences. So the standoff is going to force everyone involved to grapple with impossible questions. How do you help someone who's mentally ill while also protecting the people they've hurt? How do you balance compassion for someone suffering with a need for justice and accountability? There are no easy answers to those questions, and that's what's going to make this storyline so powerful and so difficult to watch. Now, let's talk about the Ian Ward element specifically, because his involvement, whether it's real or hallucinated, adds a whole other layer to this story. Ian Ward has a history with Mariah. He's connected to her past in deeply traumatic ways. So, the fact that his voice is the one she's hearing, that he's the one manipulating her in her current vulnerable state is significant. It suggests that Mariah never fully healed from whatever Ian did to her. That there's unresolved trauma, unprocessed pain, deep psychological wounds that have been festering beneath the surface. And now in a moment of crisis, when Mariah's at her most vulnerable, that trauma is manifesting as hallucinations of the person who hurt her. It's a perfect storm of mental illness, unresolved trauma, and the triggering circumstance of having been Dominic's surrogate. Because being a surrogate is emotionally complicated, even under the best circumstances. You carry a child for 9 months. You bond with that child physically, hormonally, emotionally, and then you give that child to someone else to raise. For most surrogates, that's manageable. They understand the arrangement from the beginning. They have support systems to help them process the experience. But for Mariah, who is already vulnerable due to her history with Ian Ward, who already had unresolved trauma, the surrogate experience might have been the thing that tipped her over the edge. And now all of that complexity, the trauma, the mental illness, the complicated feelings about Dominic is converging into this crisis. So when this storyline eventually resolves, when Dominic's safely home and Mariah's getting the help she needs, there's going to have to be a serious conversation about how this happened, about what warning signs were missed, about whether the system failed Mariah by allowing her to be a surrogate when she wasn't psychologically stable enough to handle it. Those are going to be painful conversations, but they're necessary if we want to understand how to prevent something like this from happening again. So, here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Mariah should go to prison or to a psychiatric facility? Should she be held criminally responsible for her actions even though she's clearly mentally ill? What about Abby and Devin's disagreement? Whose perspective do you think is more valid? Is Abby right to want justice and punishment? Or is Devin right to focus on Mariah's mental health needs? How do you think Tessa and Daniel are going to cope with the guilt of not realizing how bad Mariah's condition was? And what about the long-term impact on Dominic? Do you think he's going to be permanently traumatized by this? Or can kids' age recover from something like this with the right support? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is a storyline that raises so many difficult questions, and I want to hear what you think about all of it. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because the week of January 26th through 30th is going to be absolutely devastating, and you need to be here for every update as this story unfolds. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, in Genoa City, mental illness is real, trauma is lasting, and sometimes even love isn't enough to prevent tragedy. Stay compassionate, stay informed, and I'll see you soon.